Rain slid down the glass like slow-moving rivers, painting soft gray lines against the window. The world outside looked blurred, almost peaceful, but inside Amelia's apartment, the silence felt heavy. She stood still for a moment, arms folded, watching the street below. Cars passed through puddles, headlights stretching like tired stars. It was a typical Saturday in Portland.com, cool and a little lonely dot. She had always loved rainy days, but lately they carried a quiet sadness. 2 months had passed since Ryan left. His side of the closet was empty now, and yet she still found one of his socks hidden behind the dryer last week. She didn't cry. She just stared at it for a moment before tossing it away, pretending it didn't sting. Amelia worked from home as a freelance designer. Her laptop sat on the kitchen counter, still open from the morning. The last message from her client blinked unread, but she didn't feel like answering. Deadlines could wait. Some days she had energy, others she didn't. Today, she just wanted to stop thinking. The apartment was quiet, except for the soft hum of rain and the occasional creak of old pipes. Everything felt familiar but hollow. The plants near the window were drooping again. She kept forgetting to water them. The coffee she made earlier had gone cold. She picked up the cup, took a sip anyway, and made a face. Bitter. It matched her mood perfectly. Her phone buzzed with a notification. For a second, her heart leaped, a silly reflex. Maybe it was Ryan. But when she looked, it was only a grocery app reminding her to restock essentials. She locked the screen quickly, walking through the small apartment. Amelia noticed how strange it was to live among memories. The framed photo on the shelf, the two of them at Cannon Beach, laughing, wind messing up their hair, still stood in the same spot. She couldn't bring herself to move it. It didn't hurt as sharply now, but it still tugged at her quietly. She caught a reflection in the mirror on the wall. Damp curls framed her tired face. She had been meaning to take a shower all morning, but kept putting it off. Maybe it would help her feel normal again. She turned on the shower, letting the water heat up. The steam began to rise, curling into the air like small ghosts. She removed her sweater, then paused, looking around. Where was her towel? She usually kept it on the rack. She sighed. It was probably still in the dryer. Typical. She'd get it after turning off the water, she thought. Stepping into the shower, the first touch of warmth made her close her eyes. The tension in her shoulders slowly faded. The noise of the rain outside mixed with the sound of running water, a rhythm she had missed, one that drowned out thoughts. For the first time all day, she breathed deeply. Water streamed down her skin as she leaned against the cool tiles. She thought about how love could shift so quietly the way seasons did. One day, everything feels familiar, and then suddenly, doesn't. Ryan used to hum while brushing his teeth, used to fill the apartment with the smell of coffee and laughter. They never planned for an ending. No one ever really does. She caught herself thinking about his last morning there. They didn't fight, that almost made it worse. He just said he needed time, that he wasn't sure what he wanted anymore. She'd nodded, trying to stay calm, but inside she was breaking. When the door closed behind him, the silence that followed was the kind that echoes. The steam thickened, fogging the mirror outside the shower. She reached for her towel and then realized it wasn't there. Of course, she whispered under her breath, half laughing, half annoyed. She peeked out, water dripping from her hair, scanning the bathroom. Nothing. There was only one towel she could grab, the clean one in the dryer, which meant she had to walk across the apartment, wet and shivering. She groaned softly. The thought of doing that made her laugh, though. Maybe she needed something ridiculous to break the heavy mood. She turned off the water, wiped the fog from the glass, and quickly wrapped herself in the thin bathrobe hanging by the door. It wasn't warm, but it would do for now. Her hair clung to her face as she stepped out, feet leaving faint prints on the tile floor, just as she reached for the doorknob. The sound came ding-dash-dong. Dot, her heart skipped. The doorbell rarely rang. Dot. She froze, listening. The second chime came, sharper this time. Her mind raced. Who could it be? It couldn't be a delivery. She hadn't ordered anything. The landlord usually texted before dropping by. For a brief second, she wondered, could it be Ryan? She felt a strange rush of warmth and panic. He used to stop by unannounced when they were together. Sometimes with flowers, sometimes just with coffee, and that disarming grin that made her forgive him too easily. But he hadn't called, hadn't texted in weeks. Another chime, Amelia's breath caught. Her mind told her it was probably nothing. But her heart didn't listen. She adjusted her robe, brushed a strand of wet hair behind her ear, and stepped toward the door. The wooden floor felt cold under her feet. Each step seemed to echo louder than it should. She passed by the photo on the shelf again, the one of her and Ryan. Her eyes lingered for a second, then moved on. When she reached the door, she hesitated, fingers hovering over the handle. She could hear faint movement on the other side, someone shifting, waiting. Taking a slow breath, she opened it. For a moment, she couldn't speak. It wasn't Ryan. It was Ethan. The neighbor from next door, the quiet one with kind eyes and the golden retriever that barked at every mail truck. He looked surprised too, holding a small brown package in one hand. Hey, he said, glancing down awkwardly. Sorry, I didn't mean to bother you. The delivery guy dropped this at my door again. I think it's yours. Amelia blinked, processing. Then she noticed the wet strands of hair sticking to her neck, the robe clinging to her shoulders, and felt her cheeks warm. Oh, thank you, she said quickly, taking the box. I was just taking a shower. He smiled, polite but a little amused. Yeah, I can see that. Sorry about the bad timing. For a second, they both stood there, the sound of rain filling the gap between their words. Then Ethan tilted his head slightly, his tone gentle. You okay? You've seemed a little quiet lately. The question caught her off guard. No one had asked her that in a long time, not sincerely at least. She managed a small smile. I guess I've just been tired. He nodded, understanding without pressing. Well, if you ever need help or someone to talk to, I'm just next door. She thanked him softly, and he turned to leave. As he walked away, she watched him for a moment, the warmth in his voice lingering even after he disappeared down the hall. Amelia closed the door, still holding the small package, her heart strangely calm. Maybe it was just a simple encounter, a small act of kindness on a rainy day. But as she stood there, droplets still tracing down her skin, she felt something shift, something light, outside. The rain kept falling, but for the first time in weeks. It didn't sound lonely. Amelia stood for a long moment after Ethan left, the sound of the door clicking shut echoing in her small apartment. The brown package sat on the counter unopened. Steam from her shower still drifted faintly through the air. It was strange how one short conversation could shift the mood in a room. His voice had been calm, his words simple, but something in them lingered. Maybe it was just the kindness in his tone or the way he had noticed her quietness when no one else had. She went to the bathroom, finally grabbed a towel from the dryer and wrapped it around her shoulders. The warmth felt comforting, grounding. When she looked in the mirror, she didn't just see tired eyes anymore. She saw a woman trying to start again, even if she didn't know how. She opened the brown package. Inside was a small ceramic mug she had ordered weeks ago, one she'd forgotten about. On it, in faded blue letters, it said, "Begin again." She laughed quietly. Life had a strange sense of timing sometimes. She set it on the counter, poured herself a cup of tea, and watched the rain outside. Ethan's words replayed in her mind. You okay? Just 2 words, but they had cracked something open inside her, something she'd kept sealed for too long. Ryan used to ask that too in the early days. But over time, he stopped listening to the answer. Their conversations became shorter, the silences longer. She never blamed him entirely. Love simply faded, and she didn't know how to stop it. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. She turned, startled. Another knock, gentler this time. For a second, she hesitated, heart racing. Maybe Ethan forgot something. She opened the door slightly. It was him again. Ethan stood there holding a towel. You left this hanging on the railing outside your door, he said with a small smile. Didn't want it to get damp. She couldn't help but laugh. I'm officially the most forgetful person in this building. He chuckled. You're doing fine. Rainy days make everyone a little slower. Something about his easy way of speaking made her relax. She thanked him again, and as she was about to close the door, Ethan hesitated. Hey, I was going to make some soup. You should join me. It's nothing fancy, just chicken noodle, but it's warm. Amelia blinked, caught off guard. No one had invited her to dinner in weeks. Her first instinct was to say no, to stay inside and keep her quiet routine. But the thought of another silent evening made her chest tighten. She found herself saying, "Okay, let me just dry my hair first." 20 minutes later, she knocked softly on Ethan's door. The smell of something delicious drifted out before he even opened it. Garlic thyme, and something that reminded her of home. He welcomed her in, wearing a faded blue hoodie and a disarming grin. His apartment looked different from hers, more alive somehow. Books stacked on tables, a guitar leaning against the wall, a plant climbing across the window. "Hope you like simple food," he said as he ladled soup into 2 bowls. "Cooking keeps me sane when it rains too much." "Smells amazing," she replied, smiling for what felt like the first real time in a while. They sat at the small dining table near the window. Outside, the city glowed faintly through the mist. They talked icily about work. Favorite movies. The strange comfort of rainy days. She learned he was a teacher at a local high school, teaching art and photography. He told her about his students, how their creativity often surprised him. She told him about her freelance projects and how she loved colors that made people feel something. Their conversation flowed naturally. No awkward pauses, just warmth. At one point, he asked about Ryan, gently, not prying, but curious. She looked down at her soup, thinking for a moment. "We were together for 4 years. I guess it just stopped working. We became different people. He moved out 2 months ago." Ethan nodded. "That's hard. I've been there too." She looked up, surprised. "You have?" He smiled faintly. "Yeah. 2 years ago. Sometimes people grow in different directions." Doesn't mean it was all for nothing. Something about the way he said it made her chest ache. Not painfully, but softly, like the ache of understanding. It felt good to talk to someone who didn't rush her feelings or try to fix them. He simply listened. Hours slipped by without her noticing. The rain outside turned lighter, almost a whisper. She laughed when his dog Max patted over and rested his head on her lap. "He never does that with strangers," Ethan said with surprise. "Maybe he knows I needed a friend," she said, scratching the dog's head when she looked up. Ethan was watching her with that same gentle expression. Not intense, not forward, just kind. The kind of look that says, "I see you." Eventually, she stood up, realizing how late it had gotten. "I should probably go before I fall asleep on your couch." He walked her to the door, handing her an umbrella. "You can borrow it. Looks like the rain's not stopping anytime soon." "Thank you," she said, smiling softly. "For the soup and the company." "Anytime," he replied. "And hey, if you ever forget another towel, I'm next door." She laughed, shaking her head as she stepped into the hallway. The elevator chimed faintly in the distance, but she didn't move right away. She stood there for a moment, feeling lighter. Something about tonight had changed her mood entirely. Back in her apartment, she set the borrowed umbrella near the door and sat by the window. The city lights shimmered against the rain-slicked glass. She thought about Ryan, about how she had waited too long for him to come back, hoping things might return to the way they were. But now, she wasn't sure she wanted that anymore. Her phone buzzed suddenly. The screen lit up with a name she hadn't seen in weeks, Ryan. For a second, she just stared at it. A message preview appeared. "Hey, I'm outside. Can we talk?" Her heart skipped. She stood quickly, walking toward the window. Sure enough, a familiar car sat under the streetlight below. Ryan stepped out, hands in his jacket pockets, looking up at her building. The sight sent a wave of confusion through her. Not anger, not sadness, just disbelief. Why now? Why, after all this time? The rain tapped softly on the glass as she stood frozen, unsure what to feel. The world seemed to slow down around her. Her robe from earlier still hung on the chair, her towel folded neatly nearby, and on the counter sat the mug with the blue letters "Begin Again." She didn't know what she was going to do yet. All she knew was that for the first time since Ryan left, her heart wasn't only remembering him, it was also remembering what it felt like to be seen, and somewhere next door. Ethan's light was still on. Amelia didn't sleep much that night. Ryan's message kept flashing in her mind like a small light she couldn't switch off. She saw his car under the streetlight for a long time, waiting, unmoving. She didn't go down. Instead, she sat by the window, wrapped in her robe, listening to the rain and the soft ticking of the clock. Her heart wasn't racing like it used to when he appeared. It just felt heavy, full of questions she wasn't ready to answer. By morning, the rain had stopped. Portland looked washed clean, pale blue sky, damp streets glistening. She made coffee, opened her window a little, and let the cold air in. For the first time in months, it felt peaceful. On the counter sat the mug from yesterday, the one that said, "Begin again." She smiled faintly and decided to do exactly that. She dressed simply, tied her hair up, and took a walk to clear her head. When she came back, she saw Ethan outside, sitting on the steps with his dog, Max. He waved. "Morning," he said, cheerful as ever. "Didn't expect to see you up this early." "Couldn't sleep," she admitted. He nodded, tossing a stick for Max to chase. "Rain's over. Guess we survived another storm." There was something easy about talking to him. No pressure, no weight of history. She hesitated, then smiled. "I made cocoa. Want some?" His eyes brightened. "Only if I can trade you banana bread for it." Minutes later, they sat in her small kitchen, the air filled with the smell of cinnamon and chocolate. Amelia poured the cocoa into 2 mugs and set them on the table. She noticed how natural it felt having him there. It's like a quiet rhythm she hadn't realized she missed. They talked about little things first: music, favorite travel spots, how he got into teaching. Then conversation drifted to deeper things without either of them planning it. She told him about her work, her move to the city, how she'd felt invisible since the breakup. "It's strange," she said, stirring her cocoa. "You can live with someone for years, share everything, and still feel alone." Ethan nodded slowly. "Loneliness doesn't always mean being by yourself. Sometimes it's just being with the wrong person for too long." She looked up, surprised at how true that sounded. "Did that happen to you?" "Yeah," he said quietly. "I was with someone for 5 years. She wanted to move across the country. I wanted to stay. We loved each other, but not enough to change our dreams. So we let go." Amelia sighed softly. "That's hard." "It was," he admitted, then smiled faintly. "But it also taught me that endings don't always mean failure. Sometimes it's just 2 people choosing peace." She thought about that for a moment. It made sense. Maybe that was what she and Ryan had done, though it hadn't felt peaceful then. It was strange how time softened even the hardest edges. A silence settled between them, comfortable and quiet. Max lay at their feet, snoring softly. The sunlight coming through the window made small patterns on the floor. Amelia traced one with her eyes, realizing how gentle this moment felt. She caught Ethan watching her, and for a brief second, their eyes met. It wasn't awkward, it was calm, steady, almost curious. She looked away first, but a small warmth lingered in her chest. "You ever think," she said softly, "that maybe life sends people at the right time, just when you need them?" He smiled. "Maybe, or maybe we just start noticing the right people when we stop chasing the wrong ones." That made her laugh, a real, light laugh. "You always talk like you've figured life out." "Oh no," he said quickly. "I just sound like I have when I'm eating good banana bread." They both laughed then, and something inside her eased completely. She hadn't realized how much she'd missed moments like this, small, genuine connections that didn't demand anything from her. When the laughter faded, she noticed the phone buzzing on the counter again. It was another message from Ryan. She didn't pick it up. Ethan noticed her hesitation but didn't ask. Instead, he said, "You don't have to look if you don't want to." She nodded. "No, it's just strange. I used to wait for his messages like they were oxygen. Now I'm not sure I even want to open it." Ethan leaned back. Sometimes not replying is also a reply. She looked at him, surprised by the honesty in his voice. It wasn't cold, it was understanding. The kind that comes from someone who's been through their own storms. They finished their drinks slowly. Time seemed to move differently. Not fast, not slow, just easy. When Ethan got up to leave, Amelia walked him to the door. He paused, hand resting on the frame. "Hey, thanks for the cocoa," he said. "You made my morning." She smiled. "You made mine, too." After he left, Amelia stood there for a long moment. The apartment felt lighter now. It wasn't that the memories were gone. They were still there, tucked into corners, but they didn't hurt as sharply. She looked at the mug again. The words "begin again" glowing faintly in the morning light. She opened her phone finally, heart steady, not racing. Ryan's message was simple. "I'm sorry for how I left things. I just want to talk." She opened her phone finally, heart steady, not racing. Ryan's message was simple. "I'm sorry for how I left things. I just want to talk." She typed a reply, then erased it. Typed again, then stopped. Maybe she didn't need to answer right away. Maybe she didn't need to answer at all. She put the phone down and walked to the window. The sky outside had cleared completely. Birds fluttered across rooftops. For a long moment, she just stood there, breathing it all in. Then she noticed something small, a reflection from across the street. Ethan in his window, adjusting a camera. He saw her and waved. She waved back, smiling without thinking. Later that evening, there was another knock on her door, soft, hesitant. When she opened it, Ethan was standing there again, holding 2 paper cups. "Coffee run," he said. "Thought you might need one more warm drink today." She laughed softly. "You read my mind." He handed her the cup, his fingers brushing hers for just a moment. It wasn't intentional, but the warmth that passed between them felt undeniable. Not love, not yet, but something gentle, real, and growing. They stood in the doorway, sipping coffee, talking about everything and nothing. The sky outside turned pink, fading into twilight. Amelia felt calm, not because her past had disappeared, but because her present finally felt worth standing in. When Ethan finally said goodnight, she leaned against the door, smiling to herself. For the first time in months, she wasn't waiting for something to come back. She was simply here, alive, warm, beginning again. She walked back to the kitchen, picked up her mug, and took a slow sip. The city hummed quietly outside, steady and alive. The phone buzzed once more, but this time she didn't even look. Instead, she turned off the lights, lit a small candle, and whispered to herself with a smile, "I'm okay, somewhere next door." She heard Ethan's soft laugh as he talked to Max, and she knew whatever happened next, it was going to be different. Not dramatic, not rushed, just honest, steady. And new dot. And for the first time in a long time, the sound of rain didn't remind her of endings. It reminded her of everything that could still begin. Evening returned with a golden hush that touched every corner of the apartment. Amelia stood by her window again, watching the sky fade from soft amber to quiet gray. It had been 3 days since Ryan's message, and she still hadn't replied. Each night, she thought she would, that she owed him at least a few words, but when her fingers hovered over the screen, something inside her stopped her. She wasn't angry anymore. She was just done. Done explaining herself. Done waiting for closure that might never come. The past few days had felt lighter. Ethan had become a quiet rhythm in her days. Morning coffee waves from across the hall. Small talks on the stairs, shared laughter in the lobby when the mailboxes jammed again. There was no rush between them, no labels or expectations. Just calm presence, the kind that made silence feel full instead of empty. That evening, she made dinner for the first time in weeks. Nothing fancy, just pasta and roasted vegetables. She set the table for one, but the apartment didn't feel lonely anymore. Music played softly in the background, an old jazz record Ryan had once hated, but she had always loved. She took a bite, smiled to herself, and whispered, "It's okay to enjoy it now." A sudden knock at the door startled her. She wiped her hands on a towel and opened it. Ryan stood there. He looked almost the same, maybe a little thinner, eyes tired, hair messier than she remembered. He held his phone in one hand as if ready to show her proof that she hadn't replied. "Hey," he said softly. "I've been trying to reach you." For a second, she couldn't find words. She hadn't prepared for this moment. Her heart didn't leap like it used to. It only steadied itself, calm and clear. "I know," she said. "I got your messages." He nodded, glancing past her into the apartment. "Can I come in?" "Just for a few minutes." She hesitated, then stepped aside. "Okay." He walked in slowly, looking around as if searching for something familiar. "You changed things," he said. "A little," she replied. "I needed a fresh start." He gave a small, tired smile. "It looks nice." For a while, there was silence. Only the faint hum of the record player filled the room. Finally, Ryan said, "I made a mistake, Amelia. I shouldn't have left the way I did. I thought I needed space. But the truth is, I missed you. I've missed you every day." His voice trembled slightly, honest but heavy. A few months ago, those words would have broken her, would have been all she wanted to hear. But now, listening to him, she didn't feel the same ache. There was only a quiet sadness, the kind that comes from recognizing something that used to matter but doesn't fit anymore. She took a deep breath. "Ryan, I don't hate you. I never did. But when you left, I had to learn how to live without waiting. I built something on my own, small, maybe, but mine." He stepped closer. "We could try again. I've been thinking about that night, about everything I said." I was scared, and she stopped him gently. "Ryan, I've thought about it too. But sometimes what's broken doesn't need fixing. It just needs to stay in the past." He looked at her for a long moment, as if trying to find the girl who used to wait for him. But she wasn't there anymore. There was warmth in her eyes, but it wasn't for him now. A faint knock interrupted the silence. Amelia turned. The timing almost made her laugh. When she opened the door, Ethan stood there, holding a small potted plant. "Hey, sorry," he said quickly. "I didn't mean to interrupt. I just thought you might like this. It's for your window. I remembered you said your plants keep dying." Ryan turned, confused. Ethan paused when he saw him. The air grew still for a moment. Not tense, just uncertain. Amelia smiled softly. "Thank you, Ethan. That's really thoughtful." He nodded, noticing Ryan's presence but staying calm. "Didn't mean to drop in at a bad time. I can come back later." "No, it's okay," she said, and for a moment. Her tone carried quiet assurance, a tone Ryan hadn't heard from her in a long time. Ryan cleared his throat. "I should go," he said quickly, glancing at Ethan and then back at her. "I didn't mean to just show up. I just wanted to see you." Amelia nodded. "I'm glad you came, Ryan. Really. But I think I've already said everything I needed to. Just not out loud until now." He swallowed, forcing a small smile. "Take care, Amelia. You too." He hesitated, then left. The door closed softly behind him. The sound felt like the final page of a long book. Amelia stood there for a moment, taking it all in. Then she looked down at the small plant in her hands. Green, fragile, alive. "This is perfect," she said, turning to Ethan. "You always show up at the strangest times." He smiled. "Good timing's one of my rare skills." They both laughed, and the air lightened instantly. Ethan stepped inside, glancing at the table. "Did I interrupt dinner?" "Not anymore," she said. "I was just finishing." He hesitated. "Want some company while you do?" She nodded. "I'd like that." They sat together at the small table, sharing the simple meal. Conversation flowed easily. No effort needed. They talked about their favorite books, childhood dreams, how rain always seemed to follow them around. After dinner, they moved to the couch, the record still playing softly in the background. The city lights glowed outside, gentle and far away. Amelia leaned back, feeling something she hadn't felt in months. Peace. Not the dramatic, sweeping kind, but quiet peace that grows from honesty and time. Ethan turned slightly toward her. "You okay?" She smiled. "I think so. For the first time, really." "Okay." He nodded, then looked down at his hands. "You don't have to rush anything, Amelia. Sometimes healing isn't about replacing someone. It's just about remembering who you were before the heartbreak." His words settled deeply. She looked at him, kind, patient, steady, and felt something new stirring inside her. Not the sharp pull of old love, but the gentle warmth of something beginning outside. Rain began again, light and rhythmic. It tapped against the windows like an old friend returning. Amelia stood and walked to the glass, watching the reflections shimmer on the street below. Ethan joined her quietly, standing close, but not too close. She turned to him with a small, genuine smile. "You know, the last time it rained like this, I forgot my towel." He laughed. "And now?" "Now I remember," she said softly. He smiled, understanding what she meant without needing more words. The world outside felt wide again, full of possibility. They stood there for a while, listening to the rain, saying nothing. No promises, no rush, just presence. Sometimes that was enough. Later, when Ethan left, Amelia placed the little green plant on the windowsill. She watched it sway slightly in the breeze, new leaves glistening with raindrops. The apartment no longer felt like a place of endings. It felt like a home again, warm, alive, and ready for tomorrow. She turned off the lights, letting the soft glow of the city fill the room. Her reflection in the window smiled back at her, not a woman waiting for someone to return, but someone who had finally returned to herself. The rain kept falling, gentle and steady, and for the first time in a long while, Amelia didn't mind the sound at all.